Welcome everybody to another edition of TEW 2020 as it's New Japan 2004 and it's G1 Climax time. I think in the last video I said this would be a two-part thing with G1, but I forgot that at least in this version in 2004 this year, they run the G1 as basically all the matches on one night. All the matches for each block on one night, so it only went 8 nights. Usually I might have thought about like splitting that apart, but since, it's only 7 competitors in each block, I think that's doable for over, 7 or 8 nights. But regardless, as far as that goes, let's go through the actual blocks. So, for Block A, we've got Yutaka Yoshi, recently joined New Japan Black. We got Tenzan, part of the Pirates Condemned. We have Minoru Suzuki, who is who's part of the Shooters. I'm sorry, yeah, Tenzan is not part of the Pirates Condemned. He's on his own. He's part of the New Japan Army after getting turned on by Takayama. We got Manabu Nakanishi, who's actually part of the Pirates Condemned. We got Taiga Suda, we got Tanahashi, and we got Nagata. Block B, we got Rick Steiner, we got Josh Barnett of the Shooters, we got Hiroshi Saito, we got Scott Norton, we have Kensuke Sasaki, and those are 2 members of Pirates Condemned. We got Chono, of course, the new leader of the recently formed New Japan Black, and we got the former world champion Shinksuke Nakamura. So you may have noticed that the world champion, our new one, Bill Goldberg, is not here. So the gimmick for this is basically like Goldberg, is playing sort of the outsider heel, and not like pure super heel, but like he's, he's a businessman. He thinks these are, he doesn't want to wrestle in all these matches when he could make big money in these big matches. And also, out of kayfabe, I don't want to blow all these big Goldberg matches all in the G1. So the gimmick is, Goldberg has, it wasn't part of his contract to wrestle in the G1, and so he's not agreed to it, so we get the fans pissed off at that. And we also, whoever wins the G1, because this is, remember, when a New Japan IWGP title shot was assured, it makes it more difficult, because that G1 holder, at least now, can use the G1 tournament as a reason to get him a shot against Goldberg, even if it's not official. But let's go in with our opening night, live from the Yokohama City Gymnasium. And let's get rolling. So first, start with Ultimo making his official New Japan debut as a member of the roster. He gets a 59 as basically just an overness thing as he comes out with the crowd. And in this match, which he teams with Takeru Segura and Kensuke Nakamura as they defeat Roderick Strong, American Dragon, and Curryman in 14 minutes and 54 seconds. When Ultimo Dragon pins Curryman with the side DDT, Curryman gets a 69, Roderick Strong gets a 54, Danielson gets a 68, Nakamura gets a 47, Segura gets a 42, and Ultimo Dragon gets a 64. And you might notice, yes, Brian Danielson got a damaged spine. That's what we call no good. And then in a sort of undercard match, we have the Wild Dogs making their second match together as Kodaka, Yano, and Nagai defeat Ryoto, Goto, and Nagio in 14:04 when Kodaka submits Nagio in a little over 14 minutes. Like I said, this gets a 34 because of the pre-show thing. And somebody commented why I'm not putting on the pre-show, because honestly, it's realistic. They don't throw undercard workers on the pre-show in New Japan. You just have these matches that not a lot of people care about, but these people are getting their reps in. Regardless, Nagai gets a 57, Yano gets a 27, Kodaka gets a 60, Nagao gets a 25, Goto gets a 27, and Ryoto gets a 31. And then Goldberg and Mitchell Steiner just get a little more heel heat as it gets an 84. And then in our opening match of the G1, Masahiro Chono defeats Rick Steiner in a little under 13 minutes with the Shining Bazooka kick. Solid match here. Steiner throws a suplex, but eventually Chono gets a Suzuki kick, and despite kind of being turned heel after turning on Chono on Nakamura while a few months back in former New Japan Black, he probably still gets a mixed reception because A, he's still Chono, and B, he's still facing sort of the outsider here. But 66, solid match. Steiner gets a 50, Chono gets a 69. After that, in the first match for the A block, Tanahashi defeats Isuda by a pinfall in a little over 11 minutes. Just a solid, straightforward win for the under 30 champion here, who's part of the A block in the G1 Climax. He gets the high fly flow rather, 66. Tanahashi gets a 75. Isuda gets a 42 because it's Isuda, but a solid win for Tanahashi here, and he gets his first 2 points. And after that, we have a kind of big match, as in a bout that a good heat in these wrestling. Shinsuke Nakamura gets the huge win over Josh Barnett in a little under 20 minutes by pinfall as they just fight. This evolves into more of an MMA style match, as Nakamura, of course, has a MMA background of a bit, but he's become a little bit more straightforward as more of the leader of Supernova Gun. But eventually, Nakamura is able to hit a few big kicks, including the PK, including a big, Kinsasha to get the pinfall victory here in the opening night of the G1, as this gets a 74, Nakamura gets a 73, Barnett gets a 61. And then, in a solid match here, and now that he's ranked from the garbage of wrestling, Tenzan gets the win over Yoshi in a little under 10 minutes with the Tenzan Tombstone Driver. This only gets a 51 because Tenzan has an injury, but I didn't really have a spot not open. Anybody, we would really get into the direct of the roster if I put somebody else in, so Tenzan will just sort of fight through it. But he beats Yoshi here in a little over 10 minutes. So losing bit, again, go into the background here. I was originally going to book Yoshi to win here, but Tenzan got really upset about it because I didn't realize how unover Yoshi was. So he gets to take the loss here, as this gets a 51, Tenzan gets a 55, and Yoshi gets a 37, even with good chemistry. And then, in a very interesting match, two members of Pirates Gundam face off, and about the good heat of wrestling, Sasaki defeats Norton in a little under 12 minutes by pinfall the Norton left bomb. So this is just 10 minutes of these guys just throwing bombs at each other. This is not there is no build up, there is no technical wrestling. This is just two big bulls battering the crap out of each other. Eventually, Sasaki gets a few big lariats and locks in Northern bombs to pick up a pinfall victory, as it gets a 62. Norton gets a 58, Sasaki gets 67, lack of selling on display. Well, it's these two guys, what do you expect? And then afterwards, they face off, as it looks like Pirates Gundam still have some problems, as it gets a 54, continuing to build up the idea, this stable, which was more of a loose collection of individuals, is having some issues. And then in our main event of the night one, Minoru Suzuki picks up the huge shock pinfall win over Nagata in a rematch of the match they had previously, and Minoru Suzuki gets the big early win here, as it gets an 82, Suzuki gets a 72, Nagata gets an 81, as in a huge match in front of 5,000 people at Yokohama Gymnasium. Suzuki picks up the pinfall victory here, and overall this match gets us a 74. So yeah, solid opening show there. Could be because I'm putting these all as lesser shows, because they're not tour shows, because they're going to be better, and they're actually in bigger arenas, but they're not pure what's the word I'm looking for here? They're not actually I'm having a breakdown mode here. They're not actual full on shows, at least the way the game does it. So there you go. Let's see here. I mean, yes, I'm fine. You can leave. You did your job. You jobbed everybody I wanted you to, so you can go. Bye-bye. Yeah. Danielson isn't happy. Norton, all right. And I'll be back in just a second with, well, actually, let me do that. So early on in the tournament, tournaments. I hope they would be here. Okay, never mind. Tournaments. Block A. Suzuki, Tenzan, and Tanahashi open up early with 2 points. And in Block B, we got Sasaki, Chono, Nakamura opening up with 2 points. I'll be back in just a second with day 2. Alright, it's now time for night 2, live from Osaka. So let's get rolling with this match. For the show. We start with our junior tag as Liger, El Samurai, and Taguchi defeat Akea Enzoa, Koji Kanemoto, and One Collection AT in 12 minutes when Liger pins our young Lion Akea with Sheer Drop Brainbuster. This gets a 60, a perfectly solid opener to keep the junior heavyweights in action, as Taguchi gets a 32, Samurai gets a 56, Liger gets a 73, Milano gets a 66, Koji gets a 69, and Akea gets a 26. So Taguchi's slowly getting there, Akea maybe not so much. Then we move on to G1 action. Yes, okay. As first, Suzuki gets his second win of the tournament, defeating Yoshi in a little over 10 by pinfall. Straightforward win for Suzuki here, as he just, solid match. As this gets a 62, Yoshi gets a 34, Suzuki gets a 73, and Yoshi, continues having not a great tournament, Suzuki having a good early tournament. And after that, Barnett gets his first win, defeating Hiroseto in a little under 9 minutes by submission. This gets a 44. Just a sort of one of those matches in these tournaments where you have to have between people who aren't Barnett's a possible contender, but Sato's just an old veteran. And Barnett gets the win here and looks impressive, beating him in under 10 minutes. They don't click, unfortunately, but still gets a 44. Barnett gets a 51, and Sato gets a 27. So still a solid win, though. And then we have Nagata getting a big win over Yasuda in a little over 9 minutes with Wrist Clutch Exploder, as he gets his first win of the tournament and is back on one ways, as it gets 68. Again, straightforward win, nothing too fancy. Yasuda gets some power moves in, but that's about it. As Nagata gets a 78 and Yasuda gets a 42. And then we have our sort of like palate cleanser before the big matches as far as the G1, at least for tonight. Sasaki, Tenru, and Ultimo Dragon team up to defeat Tanahashi, Blue Wolf, and Heat in a little over 15 minutes when Dragon pins Heat with the side DDT. Dragon gets to go over here, solid win, continuing to put over Dragon as he gets a 73. He gets a 61, Blue Wolf gets a 53, Tanahashi gets an 81, Dragon gets a 64, Tenru gets a 43, and Sasaki gets a 71. And then in our next match, which, yeah, okay. So, I knew this was going to happen, but I still had to do it. So, basically, the idea here is Goldberg comes out with Steiner. He's fighting, Nakamura and Steiner are fighting. Eventually, what happens is basically Steiner sends Nakamura to the outside, hits a few, big, suplexes on Steiner. But it looks like, Nakamura is easily going to get in. But as Nakamura is getting up, Goldberg, sort of basically, yells at him. They talk trash, and then they start to fight. Nakamura throws the first punch, so Steiner just DQ'd, but eventually Steiner gets counted out, fighting with Goldberg. And I knew this would totally kill with the crowd, but I'm just ever so often you got to do booking that helps pisses off your crowd. As Nakamura gets a 72, Steiner gets a 52, and yeah, I mean, I just had to do it. So only gets a 19 overall, but that should happen. What can you do? And then Goldberg and Nakamura continue to brawl as this gets a 74. So there we go. Again, I knew that was going to happen. So honestly, I possibly could have even made it shorter, so it's a less part of the show. But well, what can you do? And then in our semi-main event, Nakanishi gets a big win over Tenzan in a little under 11 minutes by pinfall to Hercules Cutter. This gets a 59. Announcers put over, Tenzan is fighting here through injured, and so big win for Nakanishi here. As 57 for Tenzan, 53 for Nakanishi. This would be a better match if Tenzan wasn't injured, but still a big one for one of the members of Pirates Gundam. And then in our main event, Masahiro Chono defeats Scott Norton in a little under 20 minutes by pinfall to Shiny Suzuki kick. Norton gets to throw out his power moves. Chono gets to beat Chono, and eventually Chono gets another big win here to main event the show as it gets a 62, and the show overall gets a 68. So again, not the best show, but still, not the end of the world. And about 7,000 people in Osaka. So we'll check the standings, and I'll be back with the third show here as this all loads up. So, oh yeah, and WWE's trying to hire Scott Norton away, so I'll just show you guys this. Okay, so they're giving him $150,000 for 18 months, all shows, 20% per month. Let's say just events and A shows. And yeah, but this is the most I'm going to pay for him. And there we go. Okay, so there we go. So if we go to the tournaments, in the A block, right now Suzuki leads with 4 points. Tenzan, Nakanishi, Tanahashi, and Nagata all have 2 points, and so far the goose egg is Yasuda and Yoshi. In the B block, we have Chono with 4 points, Nakamura, Sasaki, Barnett, and Rick Steiner all with 2 points, and Scott Norton and Hiroshi Tanahashi with 0 points. So there you go. So I'll be back in second with night 3. Okay, we're now in Kobe for night 3 of the G1 Climax, as we're continuing on with a big main event of Suzuki versus Tanahashi, another big match of Nakamura versus Norton, and other fun matches, so let's get rolling. Now we start out in a 6-man tag as Ultimo Dragon teams up with Sugawara and Takamura once again to defeat the 6-man team of Inoue, Heat, and Tiger Mask as Ultimo Dragon submits Wataru Inoue in a little over 12.5 minutes. Just another match to put Dragon over. This gets a 59, Heat gets a 60, Inoue gets a 48, Tiger Mask gets a 59, Takamura gets a 47, Sugawara gets a 37, and Ultimo Dragon himself gets a 62. And then in a tag match, mainly just to build up some time, we have Kodaka and Nagai defeating Nao and Yamamoto in a little over 10 minutes. As Kodaka submits Yamamoto, this gets a 38, Kodaka gets a 61, Nagai gets a 54, Nao gets a 27, and Yamamoto gets a 29. So it's all stuff on the undercard to get the win for 2 of the Wild Dogs. And then moving on into the G1, Sasaki gets a solid win over Sato in a little over 10 minutes by submission. Just a solid straight win here for Sasaki to get the win, as this gets a 60, Sasaki gets a 69, Sato gets a 34, and yeah, just a solid win for Sasaki as he gets the win here in the G1 Climax. Then we have Nakanishi defeating Yoshi in a little over 12 minutes by pinfall with Hercules Cutter. This gets a 49 because Yoshi's not that great and Nakanishi's injured, but still solid stuff. And also they didn't click, so there we go. But it's just a win for Nakanishi as he looks strong. And then we have Chono getting a big win over Barnett in a little over 15 minutes with a shiny Lucky kick, as I believe he remains undefeated in this tournament as he gets a 73. Solid match. Chono gets a 70, Barnett gets a 62, as, this is, Chono strikes and, suplexes versus Barnett's MMA style. And Chono gets the big win here in Kobe. And after that, we have a match where, unfortunately, Yasuda gets a, okay, so yeah, this is the matchup. Basically, this was going to be a big upset here, but unfortunately, Tenzan used to have chemistry, but Yasuda gets injured. Tenzan's already injured, so this match is just a mess, but Yasuda does get the win in a little over 9 minutes with Tiger Driver. It gets a 47 overall. Tenzan gets a 58, Yasuda gets a 46, but Yasuda with the big upset win here, as Yantro's put over. Tenzan is going through this injured, but this could be one of the downsides of it. And then in our, I believe it's our semi-main, or no, it's our third from the top, I believe. Maybe our semi-main. Anyway, regardless, Nakamura, he doesn't run through Norton, but he looks really strong here, as he's visibly upset over Goldberg. He's and not really put over that he's upset over Goldberg being, getting involved in his last match, and he just runs over Norton. Norton gets a little bit of offense in, but this is basically just largely an ass kicking, as Nakamura finishes off with a Kinshasa, and 1, 2, 3. Pinfall victory for Nakamura. They don't click. Nakamura gets 62, Norton gets a 52. And then, in our main event, Hiroshi Tanahashi, in a nearly 25-minute classic, gets the win over Suzuki in a little over 24 minutes with high fly flow. I mean, just imagine any great Tanahashi-Suzuki match from a little over this time period. And there you go, with Tanahashi maybe flying around a little more, and Suzuki doing a little bit more MMA style moves. But a huge win for Tanahashi as he gets an 81. Tanahashi gets 77, Suzuki gets a 74, and overall the show gives us a 71. And we'll just go through here. Hopefully Yasuda's not injured. He's just, has to get through the matches here. Survey says. Loads. All right. Just curious. Okay, Billy Gunn versus Shane McMahon for the U.S. title is one of the matches in SummerSlam. Big Show and A-Trade between Rikishi and Scotty Toddy. So Big Show and A-Trade win the tag titles. Batista and Orton defeat Mick Foley and Rey Mysterio. I mean, that actually kind of makes sense for a SummerSlam match of the time period. Hurricane defeats Kane for the IC title. Okay. Ric Flair defeats Shawn Michaels, and Undertaker defeats Kurt Angle. Fun stuff. So let me just first medical. Shit. Okay. So Yasuda did get injured. So basically, he forfeits all the rest of his matches, which is quite unfortunate for him. So actually, let me just go through the tournament to do it for you guys. All right, so manage. Wait. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so unfortunately for Yasuda, he has to give up the rest of his matches. It's interesting. We could replace him, but here's what the problem is. That if we look at our roster, we're going to buy their contracts. So there's Goldberg, but that would make no sense. And Saps again is somebody who I don't want to have in big matches. Tender's too old. And then after that, we have juniors, injured people, and more juniors, and and people who are away for filming stuff. There's nobody really to replace Yasuda here. So I think I'm just going to pull him out of the tournament because he's injured. Too bad for him. So if we go back to tournament, manage, removing Yasuda. And there you go. So this makes things kind of interesting. So first for Block A, because of the forfeits, Yoshida finishes with 2 points. But now we have Nakanishi and Suzuki have 6 points. Tenzan and Yoshi have 2 points. Nagata has 2 points. And Tanahashi has 4 points. So there we go for that. And then in Block B, we have Chono having 6 points, Nakamura having 4 points, Sasaki having 4 points, Burnett and Steiner having 2 points, and both Sato and Norton having 0 points. And I feel like... yeah. Right. Okay. It just feels like he lost more. Okay, cool. Right, because that was... no. Hold on. Did he face Nagata? Sorry, I just got lost here for a second. Anyway, I'll be back in just a second with day 4 of the tournament, which will start the next week. So I'll be back with that in just a moment, guys. There we got day 4 of the G1, highlighted by 2 big main event matches as Tanahashi faces Nagata and Sasaki faces Chono, along with some other fun matches and some undercard junior action. Then we have our opener. As in the opener, the former junior tag champs, Kojay and Election AT, get the win over Curryman and Roderick Strong, with Danielson being currently giving him off the rest of the tour, at least because he's injured, with damaged spine, but he'll probably be out wrestling after the end of the tour. Maybe, I don't know. I'll figure out whether I want to kill him like I'm currently killing Tenzan, but we'll have to see. Anyway, they get the win in 12 minutes when Kanemoto pins Strong with Dragon Suplex hold. This gets a 64, Crayman gets a 62, Mark Strong gets a 50, Kojay gets a 59, and Election AT gets a 58. Then we have Ishimori, Fujita, and Kodaka defeating Tiger Mask 4, Inoue, and Blue Wolf in 13 minutes. When Fujita pins Inoue with Fujita Driver, and I just realized I think I forgot to set this show up as a non-tour, as a regular show, not a tour. Oh well, crap happens. Anyway, this gets a 60, Kodaka gets a 55, Fujita gets a 40, Ishimori gets a 62, Blue Wolf gets a 48, Inoue gets a 46, and Tiger Mask 4 gets a 54. And then in our first G1 match, we have Nakamura getting the win over Sato in under 9 minutes, German suplex hold. Just a straightforward one here for Nakamura to get the win. This gets a 62, Sato gets a 37, Nakamura gets a 71. And after that, Rick Steiner gets a big win here over Josh Barnett in a little over 12 minutes with the Steiner driver. Barnett still looks strong here, but Steiner powers him out and gets the win. As this gets a 57, Steiner gets a 47, and Barnett gets a 61. And then in our third match from the top, Suzuki gets back on the winning ways, defeating Nakanishi in a little over 13 minutes by submission. Big win, and of course there was a bit of a Shooters Pirates feud earlier in the year, and Suzuki gets the win here, and this gets a 68, Suzuki gets a 67, and Nakanishi gets a 55, but fairly straightforward win here for Suzuki on the 4th night of the G1. And then after that, we have Sasaki getting a bit of an upset, defeating Chono by submission. This is a top, big, old school, late 80s, early 90s New Japan style match. Holds, takedowns, suplexes, big lariats, but eventually Sasaki locks Chono in a stranglehold and gets this big submission over Chono here at night for the G1 Climax in Aichi. And this gets a 66 overall. Chono gets a 64, Sasaki gets a 68. And then in our main event, which gets a 79, Nagata gets the big win over Tanahashi as they go back and forth. Two of our top stars, two of our honestly top baby faces. But in the end, Nagata is the former world champion and just still a little bit better than the rising star Tanahashi, and gets a pinfall win here after, gets a big pinfall win here after avoiding high fly flow and hitting his finisher. Tanahashi gets a 75, Nagata gets a 69, overall a 79, and overall the show gets us a 71. So there you go. We'll see where the standings are as we're now, I believe, 3 days out from the end of the tournament, as we're a little over past the halfway point. And of course, most people will have 5 matches, I believe, in the A block because of the injury to Isuda. So we'll see where we are as far as that goes. And I'll double check that I didn't change the other things too. tours. Anyway, then looking at our tournament standings. So Block A, we have Suzuki in the lead currently with 8 points, Nakanishi with 6 points, Tanahashi with 4 points, and Nagata with 4 points. And then we have all tied at the last is Sudo with 2 points. Of course, that's where he'll stop. Tenzan with 2 points, and Yushi with 2 points. So there we go. In Block B, it's a little more interesting, as in a three-way tie at the moment, we have Sasaki, Chono, and Nakamura all at 6 points. Steiner at 4 points, Barnett at 2 points, and both Sato and Norton at 0 points. So there we go, and I'll be back with Day 5 in just a moment. Alright, now time for Day 5 of the G1 Tour, of G1 Climax. We've got 5 G1 matches, along with a special junior singles match between Taiji Ishimori and Heat, and a big tag match where Dragon and Liger will team against each other. And also a big main event as Nakamura takes on Sasaki in a rematch of their IWGP title match earlier this year. Let's get rolling, as I actually remember to set these all as non-tour shows. So, we start off as part of the G1 Climax. Tanahashi gets a big win here, defeating Yoshi in a little over 10 minutes by pinfall. This gets a 62, Yoshi gets a 33, Tanahashi gets a 71. So just a solid, straightforward win for Tanahashi here. Nothing too fancy, nobody gets the win here. And then we have Steiner defeating Sato in a little intense flying bulldog. 2 veterans, probably nothing too fancy here, just 2 guys, beating the crap out of each other for a little over 10 minutes. Then Steiner hitting the bulldog for the win here, as this gets a 50. Sato gets a 35, he's really old, and Steiner gets a 53. Then we have Ultimo Dragon revealing his partner, which is the returning Shinya Makabe, who's been away for a couple months filming a TV role. So he's back. Unfortunately, he didn't get much of an overnews boost for it, but hey, he's back. And in the actual match, Ultimo Dragon and Shinya Makabe defeat Jushin Thunder Liger and Blue Wolf in a little under 15 minutes when Makabe pins Blue Wolf with a Fisherman Buster. Dragon and Liger, face off a little bit, but they don't actually, they basically barely touched as, go after each other. But, Dragon and Liger, but they both also avoid each other. It's just straight, some quick lockups and some maybe, basic, back and forth holds, but nothing too fancy quite yet. As this gets a 68. As Makabe eventually gets in and gets the big win with the Fisherman Buster over 1/2 of the tag champs. As Makabe gets a 50, Dragon gets a 63, Wolf gets a 51, and Liger gets a 75. There we go. And then we have a freestyle segment where basically Makabe and Nishimura offer Dragon a spot in Supernova Gun. He doesn't accept, but he walks away after shaking their hands. Just a little bit of angle here as this gets a 46. And then in another G1 match, Josh Barnett gets the big win over Scott Norton in a little under 12 minutes by submission. As this gets a 65, Norton gets a 57, Barnett gets a 61. Fairly straightforward win here as Barnett gets a get a bit of a comeback. And there we go. Nothing too fancy, but again, this is part of the reason why I'm adding these bonus junior matches is outside the main event, there's not much of a reason to get people to show up to the show, unfortunately. Okay, and after that, we have Taiji Ishimori getting the huge win over Heat in over 60 minutes by pinfall to Hurricanrana. This gets a 60. Heat gets a 58. Ishimori gets a 59, despite being less over than Heat. So a big win for Ishimori here, as he has 1/2 the tag champs get the victory here. Then after that, in our semi-main event, which is a really good match, and honestly, if Tenzan wasn't hurt, this could have been in the 80s. Back and forth, but eventually, Tenzan's injury takes its toll, and Nagata gets the big win over Tenzan in a little over under 13 minutes. Tenzan gets a 57, Nagata gets a 79, and a big win here as they have good chemistry. And then in our main event, same thing that happened when they faced off for the IWGP title. As a good match, Shinksuke Nakamura gets the big win over Kensuke Sasaki by pinfall in a little under 20 minutes. Back and forth match. Eventually, Nakamura shows why he's a supernova of New Japan and gets the pinfall win here in a 76. And overall, the show itself gets a 73. So good stuff. I'll show you guys the standings. Then we'll be off till show 6. Which will be an important show as, basically set up the big last show of the, tournament. Not the last show of the tournament, but you understand what I'm saying here. All right, so, If we go to our standings, first for Block A, we have Suzuki with 8 points still. We have Nakanishi with 6 points, Tanahashi with 6 points, and Nagata with 6 points. Then we have Tenzan, Yoshi, and Susuda all tied at 2 points. And if you look at the matches people have left over, Yoshi has a match left with Nagata, and then he'll be done. Tenzan has a match left with Suzuki and Tanahashi. Suzuki has a match left over with just Tenzan. Nakanishi has a match with has matches with Tanahashi and Nagata. And there we go. So in a way, both Nakanishi and Tenzan will really determine the winner here. And over in Block B, we have really just a really stratified. So first we have Nakamura with 8 points, Chono with 6 points, Sasaki with 6 points, Steiner with 6 points, Barnett with 4 points, Saito and Norton both with 0 points. Steiner has matches left with Norton and Sasaki. Barnett has matches left with just Sasaki. Saito has matches left with both Norton and Chono, like I said. Sasaki just has matches left with Steiner and Barnett. Chono just has matches left with Saito and Nakamura. And Nakamura just has a match left with Chono. So there you go. Big matches, big matches. And I'll be back with that show with that next show, the 6th show, in just a moment. Alright, it's now time for day 7 of the G1 Climax as, possible winners start to emerge as we've got several big matches here, as we've got Tenzan taking on Suzuki, Barnett taking on Sasaki, and in the main event, Nakanishi taking on Tanahashi. So, not the, lots of, basically 1 versus, 2s, no, huge matches, but very big matches that could really affect the tournament, the tournament, rather. So, let's get rolling. As we've got 5,000 people here at the Kakashimi Arena, and we start out with a 6-man tag as Mono Collection AT, Koji Kanemoto, and Ikeya Anzawa get the win over Liger, and Taguchi, not Anzawa, get the win over Liger, El Samurai, and Anzawa in 15 minutes when Mono Collection AT gets the win over El Samurai. This gets a 66, Anzawa gets a 24, El Samurai gets a 58, Liger gets a 75, Taguchi gets a 34, Kanemoto gets a 64, and Mono Collection AT gets a 65. So fun stuff, just a solid big win here as, Monox AT gets a win over El Samurai and then sort of points at Liger after the match as this gets a 66. Solid stuff. And then in a fun tag match, Makame makes his return and actually teaming with his Supernova Gun teammate Oso Nishimura, but they actually fall as Asame Kodaka and Mitsue Nagai of the Wild Dogs get a somewhat of an upset win, even though, traditionally, wrestlers coming back from a layoff are tend to lose. I only gave Makame the win because he was teaming up with Ultimo Dragon, but a big win here as Kodaka gets the shocking win over Makabe, sort of a flash pinfall as it gets a 62, Nishimura gets a 60, Makame gets a 50, Nagai gets a 58, and Kodaka gets a 59. And overall 62, and then we move on into the G1. And in the first match of the G1, Nagata gets the win over Yoshi in a little over 10 minutes, just a straightforward win for Nagata, as he gets a 67, Nagata gets a 79, and Yoshi gets a 33. And then overall, we have Chono getting a big win over Saito in a little over 12 minutes in a battle of former stablemates in the early 90s or mid 90s, and one of Chono's former stables, but Chono gets the win here, 59 overall. Saito was starting towards the end because he's old, but Saito gets a 34, Chono gets a 66, and a big win for Chono. And then, in a bit of an upset, Scott Norton gets his first win of the tournament over Rick Steiner in a level of 10 by pinfall. This was a very standard Nectar mid-card match. There's two guys beating on each other, lots of brawling, lots of lariats, but in the end, Norton gets the big one with the powerbomb and gets his first win of the tournament, as it gets a 60, Steiner gets a 52, Norton gets a 65. Now off selling, as you'd expect. And then, in a big upset, Hiroshi Tenzan upsets Minoru Suzuki in a little over 17 by pinfall with the Tenzan Tombstone Driver, and basically stops Suzuki from locking up a place in the semifinals of the G1. This gets a 68. Tenzan, of course, he's hurt because he's 55, but Suzuki gets a 70. So a big upset win as Tenzan picks up some points, and Suzuki is now can, was if he would have won today, because he does have a match, because he already has like a win locked in because he was set to face Yasuda on the final day. So he loses here, and now he's stopped at 8 points. But then we have another huge upset as Barnett and Sasaki just go after each other, nice overall. But then after about 18 minutes, Barnett shocks everybody by hitting Sasaki with a flash knee, and the ref calls for the bell as Sasaki is KO'd. We play it up sort of like it's a shootish moment, but Sasaki recovers pretty quickly and is upset. But Barnett upsets Sasaki, and now it'll be very interesting for the final day who gets the final victory here. But Barnett gets a big win. This gets a 70, Sasaki gets a 67, Barnett gets a 62. And then finally, in the main event, Tanahashi gets the win over Nakanishi in a little over 20 minutes. It gets a 74 overall. Tanahashi gets a 74, and Nakanishi gets a 60. And overall, the show itself gets a 71. All right, so if we go to our standings. So in Block A, we've got Nagata, Tanahashi, and Suzuki all tied with 8 points. Nakanishi has 6 points, and of course, down at the bottom, Yoshi and Yasuda both have 2 points, and Tenzan has 4 points after his upset win. So here are the final matches for the final day. Of course, it was supposed to be Suzuki versus Yasuda, but he got the win, and now his tournament is done. And also, Yoshi's tournament is done with 2 points. And then, so outside of that, we have Tenzan versus Tanahashi, and Nakanishi versus Nagata. So, if, basically, Nagata and Tanahashi know, if they win, they're into the semifinals. If there is a tie between Suzuki and Tanahashi, Tanahashi moves forward because of, win record. If it's Suzuki versus Nagata, it would be Suzuki moving forward because then, Nagata, because we're tied up. Then we have Block B, which has Chono and Nakamura at 8 points, Sasaki, Barnett, and Steiner at 6 points, Norton at 2 points, and Sato at 0 points. So the last match and the main event of the final part of the climax is Chono versus Nakamura. And of course, this is sort of obvious, but if they win, they're in. But if they lose, things get interesting because, of course, Sasaki has a match versus Steiner. They'll be obviously a tough match. And then in the other, in the match, Barnett is done, so he has 6 points. So basically, let's start out with the simplest version. Nakamura wins, he's in. If Chono wins, since Chono lost, if Sasaki then beats Steiner, Sasaki is in because he beat Chono. But if Steiner wins, then Chono is through because he beats Steiner. On the other hand, if Chono beats Nakamura, if Steiner wins, he's into the semifinals. But if Sasaki wins, Nakamura's into the semifinals because, of course, Chono got the win here. So we'll just have to see what happens here in the finals. Well, not in the finals, but in the final day of the actual tournament part. I'll be back with that in just a moment. Well, actually, right, it's now time for the 7th day of the G1 Climax and the final days of the actual block matches. As we got 5 big matches. Well, okay, let's be honest here. 4 big matches and 1 match just to finish out the thing. But in theory, almost anybody, of the 10 people wrestling tonight in the G1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of them still have a chance to be in the semifinals. So let's see who ends up in the semifinals, including one person who's in wrestling. So really it's 7. So let's get started as we open the show up with Makabe and Nishimura getting a win over the Young Lions. as it takes a little over under 10 minutes, as Makabe pins Yamamoto with the Fisherman Buster. This gets a 48. Nishimura gets a 56, Makabe gets a 47, Yamamoto gets a 29, now it gets a 27, just a straight up win to put Makabe and Nishimura over. And then in our next match, Tiger Mask and Inoue defeat Strong and Curryman in a little under 14 minutes. When Tiger Mask 4 pins rather Strong with Tiger Suplex hold, this gets a 65. Basically just a junior tag match to fill some time and put over Tiger Mask 4 and Inoue, who have been a little lost in the shuffle since we brought in some new people and been pushing some other people. But Curryman gets a 64, Strong gets a 52, Inoue gets a 49, and Tiger Mask 4 gets a 60. And then in a big junior tag match, Milano Collection AT and Koji Kanemoto get the huge win over Liger and El Samurai in 13 minutes and 48 seconds, while Milano Collection AT pins your junior heavyweight champion, Jushin Liger, as this gets a 75, Kanemoto gets a 63, Milano gets a 71, Samurai gets a 53, and Liger gets a 78. And then officially a title match is set up for the final day of the G1 Climax. For the actual G1 Climax final, it'll be Liger versus Milano Collection AT for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. And then in our first G1 Climax match, Scott Norton makes Hirosato gets a goose egg as he pins him in a little over 7 minutes. Just a straight head, like, big man, big beefy men. But Norton gets the win here, ends up with 4 points, gets a 56 overall. Sato gets a 34, and Norton gets a 64. So there you go. Good stuff. And then in the first match that matters here, Hiroshi Tanahashi gets his ticket into the semifinals as he defeats Hiroshi Tenzan in a little under 18 minutes by pinfall. Solid match. Tenzan's still injured, so this suffers a little bit, but still a really good match. As in the end, Tanahashi gets the big win and advances to the semifinals. This gets a 75 overall. Tanahashi gets a 79, and Tenzan gets a 56. But then, in the next match from the other block, Kensuke Sasaki gets the big win over Rick Steiner in a match that didn't have much selling, but I mean, not surprised by these two, as Sasaki gets a 68, Steiner gets a 54, 69 for Sasaki, rather, but 61 overall. And so here's what this means. Sasaki is still alive, but what he needs is for Nakamura to win, because if Chono wins, he's out because Nakamura beat him. But he beat Chono, so he'd be into the semifinals over Chono. So there we go. That's stakes. And then, in the final match of the A block, Yuji Nagata manages to beat Manu Nakanishi in 127 minutes by pinfall versus Clash Exploder. This match is really set up as Nakanishi trying to basically act as a spoiler here and almost taking Nagata to the 30-minute time limit. But in the end, Nagata, your former IWGP champion, is just that good. And he gets the win. He knocks out Suzuki, and him and Tanahashi finish as the joint winners. And I'll have to double check who actually won their match against each other to figure out who basically advances into the semifinals as the number 1 seed from the A block. And then this gets a 76 overall. Nagata gets an 80. Nakanishi gets a 58. And then in our final match, that's really disappointing. They don't click. Okay, that's really unfortunate. Okay, but in the end, in a little under 25 minutes, Masahiro Chono wins the tournament, or at least the B block B tournament, as he beats Nakamura in basically a stiff match. Only gets a 63, unfortunately. Nakamura gets a 59, Chono gets a 57 since they don't click, and overall this gets a 63. And overall, the show itself gets a 71. So that means Nakamura is the number 2 guy. And I'm going to check who beat who between the 2 blocks. I should have remembered that, because obviously they would run be tied. But let's see here. Survey says. Okay, so tournaments. Doing Climax. Okay, so just to go over things, Tanahashi and Nagata tied up. And yeah, we see here, right, because Tanahashi's one job was to Nagata. So Nagata loses. Right, okay. That was the whole point of right, okay. So Nagata will be the number 1 seed, and he'll face Nakamura, while Tanahashi will face Chono. So there we go. And then for this tournament, Suzuki got 8 points, Nakanishi got 6 points, Tenzan got 4 points, Yoshi and Yasuda end up with 2 points. And of course, as we see here in the finals, Chono gets 10 points, Nakamura gets 8 points, but he's advanced since he beat Sasaki, also finished with 8 points. Barnett and Steiner finished with 6 points, Norton with 4 points, and Hiroshi with 0 points. So we still have 2 more nights of the G1, and one last night in the finals. The next night will be the semifinals, along with other fun stuff, and then the finals on the next night. So I'll be back with that in just a moment. Alright, now it's time for the next to last day of the G1 Climax Tour, as we've got the semifinals of Chono versus Tanahashi and Nagata versus Nakamura, along with some other matches to fill out the show and set up some other feuds and give some heat to some feuds. You can do it on the undercard and set up some other fun stuff. So let's get rolling, live from the Budokan in front of, I think it's going to be only 5,000 people, because we're basically treating this as a leisure show, and we've sort of burned out the area. Regardless, we start off with Roderick Strong and Curryman defeating our young lions, our young junior heavyweight lions, into Gucci and Anzawa in 11 or 12 minutes, and Strong gets Anzawa with the death by Roderick. This gets a 44, so Curryman gets a 72, Roderick Strong gets a 54, Anzawa gets a 28, Gucci gets a 34, gets the pre-show penalty, but a solid opener to put over Strong and Curryman, while Danielson recovers from his injury. After that, we have Kodaka and Yano of the Wild Dogs defeating Yamamoto, and we'll have the tag champ Blue Wolf in 9 minutes when Kodaka gets the win over Blue Wolf. This gets a 54. Solid stuff. Blue Wolf gets a 51, Yamamoto gets a 30, Yano gets a 27, and Kodaka gets a 62. So a big win for Kodaka, defeating one half of the tag team champions, as it gets a 54. And then, in basically a kind of a preview of the Liger Collection AT match, tomorrow at the finals, Koji Kanemoto gets the win over El Samurai in a little over 15 minutes with a Dragon Suplex hold. This gets a 65. Big win for Koji, as he, has been sort of in the background, but he was former junior tag champ, but he hasn't been a top guy. But a big win here tonight, and final night before the G1 Climax finals. El Samurai gets a 55, Kanemoto gets a 63, but solid stuff. And then we have the return of Road Warrior Animal from his injury, as he teams with Rick Steiner, and they defeat Makame and Nishimura in a bit of a, setup feud, as from Supernova Gun, of course, is Nakamura's partners, but unfortunately, they can't beat Rick Steiner or Animal, as Steiner gets a win over Makame with Flying Bulldog. This gets a 64, Animal gets a 64, Steiner gets a 52, Nishimura gets a 61, and Makame gets a 50. And then, in a fun match, about the design of the crowd, Fujita and Ishimori makes defense number 1 of their IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Titles, defeating Heat and Tiger Mask in 150 units when Ishimori pins Tiger Mask 4 with a Hurricane Rana. So this was set up because Heat actually was one of who gets to win over Fujita back at Best of Super Juniors, and now they're junior tag champs. This match was set up, but Fujita and Ishimori survive with the titles and get another big win in their hot run since they entered the company. 63 overall, Ishimori gets a 64, Fujita gets a 33, Tiger Mask 4 gets a 60, and he gets a 58. So solid stuff, as even if Fujita and Ishimori have no chemistry, they still got the win here. And then we're moving forward, as in a match basically set up after Barnett shockingly knocked out Sasaki. He teams up with Nakanishi, and they get a measure of revenge, even though Sasaki has his own problems. Suzuki has his own problems with Sasaki, interestingly. So measure of revenge, Sasaki pins Barnett with the Northern Lights Bomb, as this gets a 77. Barnett gets a 66, Suzuki gets a 77, Nakanishi gets a 60, and Sasaki gets a 74. And now we're moving on to our 2 semifinals, as in the first semifinal, which gets an 81, Masahiro Chono gets to yet another G1 finals, defeating Hiroshi Tanahashi in 17 minutes with a Shining Suzuki kick. This gets an 81, Tanahashi gets a 76, Chono gets a 73. A big win for Chono, and who will he face there? He'll be facing Yuji Nagata, as he defeats Nakamura in under 24 minutes. This gets an 82, Nagata gets a 77, Nakamura gets a 77, and that sets up the finals of Nagata versus Chono. Now, of course, the booking criticism you can make here is I didn't put over the young guys, but here's the thing. Nakamura was just the world champion for the first half of the year before dropping the title to Goldberg, and Tanahashi's one half of the tag champs, still the under 30 champion. So, I understand, the internet at this time would hate this booking, I would get an invective of paragraph of hate from Meltzer, but this is dark times, and this really sets up because, if even though it isn't official this time, the winner of the G1 usually got a title shot, so the idea of two of these loved veterans, well, Chono is respected even though he's kind of a heel now, or Nagata going after Goldberg would get a lot of, popularity or support. But overall, the show itself gets an 80, and yeah, okay, so first, okay, so looking for anything that was, El Samurai, I'll give you because you had a great performance, or actually good performance, and you did the job. Tanahashi and Nakamura. There you go. So this sets up, a G1 finals of Masahiro Chono versus Yuji Nagata, which will be the finals. And of course, the other match that was set up was Jushin Thunder Liger versus the Long Collection AT for the junior heavyweight title. And the rest is sort of like how all G1 finals are, a smorgasbord of other matches set up by what has happened in the tournament so far. So, as we see here, as it loads up, see if we get any interesting news. Not really. Sure. Here you go. Get paid more. Where are we? Yeah. And oh, I completely forgot Goto was he was old anyway. Chono thinks Barnett is a draw. Well, good to know. So I'll be back in just a second with the G1 finals. Alright, it's now officially time for the G1 finals live from the booth and hall in beautiful Tokyo, as we've got a main event, of course, for the G1 Climax trophy. And the winner of the tournament, Nagata versus Chono. We have Liger versus Long Collection AT for the junior heavyweight title. We have a big six-man tag of Goldberg, Steiner and Animal, American Muscle teaming up to take on the Supernova Gun of Nakamura, Makabe, and Ishimura. We have Tenzan versus Barnett, and sort of as Tenzan, knocks Suzuki out of the G1 Climax. So Barnett here going for revenge for his stable mate. Ultimo Dragon makes his one singles match return versus El Samurai. Then we have a six-man tag of Tanahashi, Blue Wolf, and Yamamoto taking on Wild Dogs. Yoshi and Goto team up as in their first tag match as members of New Japan Black, take on Nego Ryoto, and we have a 10-man tag to open things up. Actually, I'm going to move that up to here because this is not going to get a good rating. So then let's start the show. We start things out with Yoshi and Goto getting the win over Nago and Ryoto in 11 or 10 minutes, with Goto getting the win over Nago with a missile dropkick. This gets a 29 because of the pre-show penalty. Goto gets a 37, Yoshi gets a 34, Ryoto gets a 40, Nago gets a 26, 29 overall. Not the worst thing, but could be better. And then in our wacky 10-man junior tag, we have Heat, Tiger Mask, and Inoki team up with the Korean Man Roderick Strong, while Kanemoto teams up with Fujita Ishimori, your junior tag champs, and Takemura and Sugawara. And in a big win, Kanemoto gets the win for his team, teaming Roderick Strong, the Dragon Suplex. This gets a 65. Strong gets a 54. Birdman gets a 72. Inoki gets a 45. Tiger Mask 4 gets a 54. Heat gets a 56. Sugawara gets a 34. Takemura gets a 49. Ishimori gets a 69. Fujita gets a 42. And Kanemoto gets a 60. And then, in a bit of an upset here, the Wild Dogs get a huge win over Tanahashi, Blue Wolf, Yamamoto when Yano rolls up Young Boy Yamamoto, getting the roll-up pin. This gets a 60, as basically the match ends as Tanahashi and Blue Wolf are fighting with Kodaka and Nagai on the outside. Yamamoto gets a 31, Blue Wolf gets a 49, Tanahashi gets a 76, Nagai gets a 53, Kodaka gets a 59, and Yano gets a 28. But a big win for the Wild Dogs over the tag champs and their Young Boy partner. Then Ultimo Dragon gets the big win over El Samurai by submission in 61. Ultimo Dragon gets a 61, El Samurai gets a 53. Was there porcelain, awful gimmick, okay, and nothing too terrible, but still. But a big moment here. As then, after that, we have then, and about like good team, Peace Wrestling, Tenzan sort of shocks people again, getting the win over Josh Barnett in 13 minutes with Tenzan to driver. This gets a 66, Tenzan gets a 52, Barnett gets a 64. And post-match, what happens is, of course, Suzuki comes out to try to go after Tenzan, but after what looks like a beatdown of all people, Kensuke Sasaki of the Pirates Condemned shockingly makes the save for Tenzan, running him off, and then helps up Tenzan up, and they raise each other's hands. So that gets a 65. It looks like Sasaki, at least for now, is willing to deal with someone not as part of the stable. And then, I believe in our semi-final, in match 3rd from the top, Nakamura, Makabe, and Nishimura defeat American Muscle, but Nakamura can not get the win over the IWGP champion, but he does get a measure of revenge, getting the win over Rick Steiner, who, got him with a who beat him via the countout at the beginning of the G1 Climax. This gets a 67, Animal gets a 64, Steiner gets a 51, Goldberg gets a 60, Nishimura gets a 59, Makabe gets a 46, and Nakamura gets a 72. So there we go. And then, in a really good match, Jushin Liger makes defense number 1 of his title, defeating Minoru Suzuki in 1509 by pinfall with a sheer drop brain buster. Liger gets a 69, Minoru shockingly gets a 72. And then after the match, Thunder Liger comes out again, is celebrating when Ultimo Dragon comes out again and basically challenges Liger again. Basically saying, he's a true, masked legend here, and he is going to prove he is the #1 junior heavyweight in professional wrestling. So 57, solid stuff. Continuing this feud that's been building up the past couple months since Dragon made his debut, and then it's time for the finals of the G1 Climax. And in the finals, Yuji Nagata gets the huge win here, defeating Chono in a little under 23 minutes. Winning the G1 Climax, as this gets a 79, Nagata gets an 82, Chono gets a 77, and then post-match, Nagata celebrates with the G1 Climax, and just, happy ending as Nagata gets the win here, and a huge win here at the Budokan, and overall the show gets us a 75. So, Nagata, let's see here, Josh Barnett, and then let's give it for JT, even though So there you go. I thought that was a solid tournament. So a little bit of out of things. I was originally going to set up, the original plan here was basically, Nakamura and Chono actually drawing the final day. But when I realized that Sasaki, Steiner, and Chono, Nakamura on the last day lined up like it did, I figured that was a better way since both guys were getting to the finals anyway. So, G1 Climax finals, good stuff. And yeah, I am not shocked that happened. So, dropping out loan to TNA, okay. So yeah, we did fall to medium size, which is unfortunate. But I figure this just because the company's too popular for the town that we have at the moment. But not the end of the world. So if I just go through here, so let's just go over our top stars here, just to see if anybody got really over or not over. Okay, so still no major stars, which is a problem. So star-wise, Goldberg. We look Goldberg, so yeah, he's still solidly over. Liger. We're actually building up, rebuilding Liger's popularity a little bit. Chono's Chono. He dropped a little because he did some jobs, but that's part of the reason why people are doing jobs, because they the overness to, let go. So there you go. Again, the thing is, at the start of this, all these guys are, more over than they should. Well, the company's more over than they should be. Tanahashi, speaking of people we've been building. Yeah, he's up to a 73, so hopefully, getting some wins will get him over more. Tenzan is shocked. Tenzan's more over than I thought he would be. Let's see, anybody else gets, let me see if Barnett knocking. Okay, he gained a couple points, so that's a positive. Sasaki, did he lose a ton? Not really. Nakanishi, you did pretty decently, did you? How did you do? Okay, so Nakanishi actually gained 6 points just through his wins there, which is nice. Suzuki gained back a point or two. Nakamura Nakamura's interesting because, like, he's about the same, but yeah, fun stuff. Anyway, Ultimo Dragon is decently over. But, so yeah, I mean, you sort of see where I'm going. Like, Nagata, is, sort of, the Iron Man of New Japan, has won the G1 Climax. Goldberg's still a world champion. Liger's still a junior heavyweight champion. Vegeta and Ishimori are still the junior tag champs. And Tanahashi Blue Wolf are the tag champs, but look, they have new challengers in the form of Kodaka and Nagai. And it looks like Sasaki has chosen to maybe leave the Pirates Cadet, or maybe he's just helping Sony because, he's no friend of Suzuki, and some other interesting stuff is going on. But that's it for now. So if you enjoyed this, go ahead and give it a like, comment below what you're enjoying and not enjoying, and subscribe to the channel for TEW 2020 content like this and my WCW 2005 series. But that's it for now, so talk to you later, and adios. Have a good one.